All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Kelley with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm very excited to have Chantal Duister, right?
It's like rooster with a D.
Like Rooster, but Duister. Got it. Okay. And Chantal is an estate planner, and she's fantastic. She's located in Rancho Bernardo. Is that correct?
So we were located in Rancho Bernardo. We actually moved to San Diego. We're a block away from the new courthouse. So 401 West A Street.
That's fantastic. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Chantal Duisters, and I'm one of the managing partners with Duisters and Parvizi. My other partner, and she's my best friend, is Nellie Parvizi. So we started this firm fairly quick after we passed the bar exam together. We had become really good friends in law school, and I think it was kind of, both our idea to do our own thing. We're women, we wanted that independence if we have families in the future, kind of to form that now before that time happens. I was working for an insurance defense firm, mainly construction defect in Del Mar, for quite some time. I was a law clerk, then I passed the bar and I became an associate, but it was very short-lived because she had approached me and said, hey, you've always wanted to do estate planning and you've always said you want to have your own practice one day. Do you want to do it? So it was kind of one of those things that it was like, well, I'm not married. I don't have children. Why not? So we kind of picked up from there. My business partner, while I was transitioning out of that firm, she did like a lot, most of the formation and the website and, all the nitty gritty. Yeah. And then we really just, picked up from there. I'm born and raised here. She was raised in Sweden. So me being born here and my family growing up here definitely helped get the business off the ground.
We're the last of the few born and raised in San Diego.
I know. Well, my dad's from Belgium. My mom's family's from Italy, but she was born here. And then my business partner was born in Iran and raised in Sweden. So she's like, you're the perfect business partner. You know everybody in San Diego.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. And so what interested you about estate planning? Did you want to help people? What interested you about it?
So my major in undergrad was actually psychology and human development emphasis. And I always wanted to do something where I could interact with people and at least feel good about, what I was doing. And we all have different personalities. I am definitely not one to sit in an office all day and not be able to interact with different people. So
same way.
Yeah, I could never do it. And I knew that early on. So estate planning was an elected course at law school that I chose. And I fell in love with it because it was the one area of law. I didn't want to do family. I didn't want to do criminal. But estate planning was an area where I felt, well, this is cool. This relates to everybody's life. And then also you really can help people as well. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. I felt that there wouldn't be too much, contentions involved if I chose the route that was more peaceful in estate planning. So that was really that was it. As I finished the course, I loved it more and more. And that was it for me. No contracts, no family law, no criminal. I just kind of eliminated.
Oh, that's great. Now, let's talk about what estate planning is. Why don't you go ahead and give us a definition, if you will, a little information about it for everybody out there.
Absolutely. So estate planning can encompass like many different areas of planning. A lot of people say planning for your death. I say planning for your life. There is a negative spin on it, but what estate planning is setting up the proper documentation and putting things into place so that you can really make sure your legacy carries on.
Absolutely. And that's very important, especially buying a house.
Absolutely. I mean, there's first-time home buyers who've worked so hard to get to that point, and now there's home ownership. Well, how do you protect that? And, aside from those protections, estate planning encompasses the things we don't like to think about, like what are your healthcare decisions, or what are your views if you have minor children on if something were to happen to you, when would you want them to inherit what you've worked hard for? And how do you want them to inherit? So when we think of estate planning, I really like to say, it's about planning and protecting your legacy that you worked so hard for. And that includes your minor children, if you have any.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Other than, you said first-time home buyers are definitely important to have in estate planning. Of course, anybody with children. I think anybody that owns real estate, period, even some baby boomers would need an estate trust if they don't have one already to pass down. And I know right now there's a lot of baby boomers that are exchanging wealth, if you will, unfortunately or fortunately. But
Right.
so let's talk about more of who should really get an estate planning or trust.
So there's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, for the longest time, there's been this misconception that, you don't need an estate plan. You don't need a trust unless you're rich or unless you're extremely old. So
Right.
now we have, there's this group of millennials or the tech industry or, these young professionals that are accomplishing wonderful things. And it should not be forgotten. It's not one of those things where you say, hey, oh, I can wait till I'm 80 to do this because that's when I'm going to be really rich. And that's when I'm probably going to have to start planning for my death. I mean, I say there's a few things that I say. If you are a homeowner, no ifs and or buts. You need to have a living trust to protect your
Absolutely. It's the biggest investment you're going to make pretty much in your life. So you should definitely have that protected.
Absolutely. And, just to clarify, because I dealt with this a couple days ago and I deal with it every day. You need to have a trust. You cannot have a will. You need to have a trust if you own real property. It is the only way to retitle your asset, your home, to a document to make sure that it avoids probate. So a will not do that. A will put you, and I explain to people, it'll put you right through probate with your will on that asset. So I have to reiterate constantly, whether you're a third-time home buyer, a first-time home buyer, or you have multiple homes, you should be considering in the event that something happens to you, what happens to that asset? A lot of people say to me, Laura, well, I have a mortgage on it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. For purposes of probate, it does not matter. So you
sorry to interrupt, but probate can be expensive, can't it?
Absolutely. So if you're going through a probate, they don't care what your mortgage is on the property or not. The fees that you're going to pay out to an attorney and an administrator are going to be based off the value of your estate. Whether or not, 900,000 of the million is a mortgage, they don't care. So plus, it's a whole nother subject to avoid the whole court process, which we could touch on. So I definitely say homeowners, if you are a parent of minor children, I mean, even more, what is the largest asset you could have? The greatest asset you could have is your child. So, there's also misconceptions that people think, well, if we die, oh, my sister will just raise them or my mom automatically gets them. That's not how it works in California. You definitely need to set up some guardianship designation where you determine who you'd want to be, raising your children. And do you want somebody to physically raise your children? And then when it comes to, monetary aspect, do you want somebody different? Do you want them to be the same person? These are all things that need to be laid out because you just can't assume.
No, you can't. You really can't. And I know with me, I have 2 children and I want to make sure that they are taken care of should anything happen. You just never know, especially even with today. I mean, we have so much going on and in our world that we are focusing on, and we should probably focus on making sure that our affairs are in order and able to move forward just in case. I mean, you just don't know.
There is so much uncertainty as we're seeing, and at first we were dealing with this horrible pandemic, and now we're on to another horrible aspect. And with all the uncertainty, if you can provide some certainty to your life and to your family, this is definitely the way to do it. And what I have found is, unfortunately, the people who've gone through it with their loved ones who haven't done it are ultimately the best clients because they've been through the bad side. And so they're so eager to not repeat that for their children or their loved ones. I really advise people, they think they have time, and this is not just a matter of death. Sometimes it's just a matter of becoming incapacitated to the point that now you can no longer understand and sign your own documents.
Right.
So you shift into another, a whole entire court process with a conservatorship. There's just so many levels, especially in Southern California, that need to be abided by properly to avoid any of these terrible things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially I was talking to you about a client who, had dementia. I mean, and luckily she had a trust in place, which is a great thing to have, but you just don't know. Anything could happen at any time. And I think if you're going to invest your money into, real estate or anything, what have you, you could own, I don't know, an airplane, a hangar, it doesn't matter if you own, $100,000 or 50 million, you should have everything taken care of so that in the future it will be taken care of no matter what happens. Go ahead.
For my family, for example, my parents and my sister and I are 2 years apart, and then my parents had our brother 13 years after me. I'm the middle child. So, for the longest time, we had this minor in the family. He's 19 now. And, he just passed the age of what I guess what someone would consider an adult.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this now for, I think, 6 years. I'm trying to think where we are already, 2020. And for the longest time, my family was like unaware until I educated them. Well, hey, if God forbid something happens to you, mom and dad, when you're on that cruise or you're gone for the weekend, they just assumed my sister and I would raise him. And, could that work to a certain extent? Maybe on, a very small scale, but when it comes time for the doctors or, for school, for, what you need to call in, you understand, Laura, and they need verification.
Just in medical terms, if something happens to you and, you don't have anybody appointed to, give the directive as far as medical and you're incapacitated, then, then what,
Well,
absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing, and people's wishes aren't carried through because, they haven't done it. And, unfortunately, Laura, we have to determine someone's capacity. So there are situations we walk into and there's individuals who want to do something and get their papers in place. But after meeting with them, we can understand maybe that, what we tell them 1 minute, an hour later, they don't remember what we said. And at that point, we have to say, we can't help you. This needs to be a conservatorship. So, and people think that that's just something of, older age. It's not. Think of the accidents happen every day. Think of a car accident. Think of, terrible things happen that we don't want to think about. We're all invincible in our heads. And, I definitely am, but these are planning that you plan for, you sit down, you take the month, start to finish to do it. And then you could put it on the shelf for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that being said, how often should you reflect on it? Go back once you get a trust in order. How often should you go back and review it?
So our go-to is kind of, one, if like you have another child or you decide you want to disinherit a child or something like that. If an event, sparks a change that you're aware of, you contact an attorney.
Right.
Otherwise, we say every 3 to 5 years is kind of a good time frame to say, hey, we have clients come to us constantly, their trusts are 20 years old. And the, estate tax exemption has drastically changed and the laws have changed. So it's time to kind of recreate a new trust. But 3 to 5 years is a good time frame.
Yeah. And I know it's hard for people to think that way. And I know it's hard to have that conversation even with your family or your parents for that matter. But at the same time, unfortunately, we all have to plan. It's just an inevitable.
Yes.
Inevitable. It's still early. I'm having coffee.
No, I know.
But it's good to have like yourself on people's side to make sure that they have their affairs in order, especially today, in any time for that matter, because you just don't know.
It's interesting because, I was raised in a very old-fashioned, upbringing, and it was like, personal affairs and finances, you never talk to your parents about. Like, that's just not your business.
Right. No, I hear you.
And I still, despite my career, my sister's a family law attorney, and we still don't, dare ask our parents stuff. However, my industry has caused me to say, hey, mom and dad, you own a home. We had this minor brother. And even then, Laura, it's funny. And I can relate to clients that come in and they say to me, I don't know what my parents have. And I don't know, and they're adult children. And they say, I don't know. And I don't want to not know, but to ask my parents, hey, have you thought of doing an estate plan and so on, is kind of like an uncomfortable situation. So it's wonderful to kind of guide people through that and be able to relate and say, well, here's how you can approach it. And here are the reasons why. I mean, my dad told me when I told him, he said, well, you're a probate attorney. If something happens to us, you'll know what to do with court. And I'm like, that's not the point. I don't want to deal with court and the time frame.
Oh. And that's the hard part is the time frame and the court and the costs and the emotions and everything on top of that. I mean, we sell houses and we see these every day too. I mean, we've dealt with trusts, we deal with probate, we deal with the whole nine, and it's heart-wrenching sometimes. I mean, there's so many, you want to help so many people, and you want to do, it's hard. It can be hard in different situations, and there's so many different stories, but it's easier to have everything planned out to the best of your ability, just in case.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a couple probates right now, and one in particular that it's just unfortunate. The court, especially now, doesn't have too much time to understand the life stories and what someone's wishes were and what the emotions were. They have to go by black letter law and who's, intended to inherit and so on if there's no documents in place. So I have a probate right now that, the wife should be inheriting the property completely from her husband of, 40 plus years, but there's some additional facts. And now a child that was legally adopted is but estranged. And, I can take a step back and hear the storyline and hear the emotions. And there's so much I can try to do, but, these are why if you really do, we have them. If you want a child disinherited for a reason, you need to have it in an estate plan, because otherwise, if it goes to probate, they're likely going to inherit something maybe you didn't want to. And I hate saying that, but these are the realities of the importance of what it is that your wishes are that you want to be carried through. You need to have them documented. You need to have the proper estate plan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for explaining that. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And I hope that this video, it helps anybody who watches it out there, because, it's a fact of life. It really is. Is there anything else that you want to add about estate planning and trust that we haven't talked about already?
I think the main thing right now would just I like to spark people's interest to at least, call an estate planning attorney, get a free consultation, because just a lot of people will call and say, I don't think I need an estate plan. And then as we gather information, they realize they do. Given the circumstances of everything that's happening in the world, I am definitely seeing, I'm sure you're seeing too, a shift in the court process and in the real estate market and just the time frame of everything. I don't know what the future holds. I don't think any of us do.
None of us do. And I wish I did. I'd be on a beach in Tahiti, raking in the dough.
Take me. Well, and that's the main thing. If there's so much out of our control right now, and there's so many unknowns. So if you can, take some control of your life and not leave it in the hands of what could possibly happen in the court system, do it.
Education is best. And that's why I'm doing this video with you today is you need to be educated, especially when you're investing your money, your hard-earned money that you are making. You need to make sure and invest it properly and take care of it. I mean, it's just like anything else.
Absolutely. I encourage people, have these difficult conversations. Don't wait, ask your family, where your parents or whoever it is, your loved ones, where they keep some of their financial information. Basic things of, checking your beneficiary designations on assets that you own, other than houses, obviously, but bank accounts. These are just
everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Do it now. Do it during this time where, we have a little more time than we're used to. Just take care of these issues now. I just encourage everyone, educate yourself, whether it's a simple Google search or contacting a couple attorneys and trying to set up free consultation, Zoom, FaceTime, phone consults, anything that you could share the facts of your family situation and try to gather the best approach for your family.
Absolutely. We're both here to help. And if they wanted to contact you, how would they do so?
Our phone number is area code 619-375-0077. So, you know, we are readily available. One thing that I will say, and maybe it's, you know, the younger generation, but we are always on our phones and trying to get back to people as fast as we can. These are important needs. So, and you know, some people stress about it more, you know, they're worried about a situation that we're able to step in and say, oh, don't worry, it's not as bad as you think. Or, hey, you're a little too calm, we need to get the ball rolling. So the starting point is really speaking to an attorney and not being fearful of that process. I think a lot of people are intimidated. I think same with selling or buying a home. It's intimidating. It's a very big step in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially now where there's a lot of questions about what's going on, you know, even with the mortgage and the forbearance.
Oh, yes.
There's so much going on right now as far as real estate industry. So reach out to your realtor, reach out to an attorney, you know, get everything in order so that you come out of this on top. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm Laura Kelley again with Keller Williams Realty. My number is 619-985-3362. You can also visit my website at laurasandiego.com. And I appreciate your time with us today, Chantal. I thank you so much. And we look forward to talking with you more. I know I have a couple clients that will be calling you shortly. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing too. I know it's a crazy time right now with, you know, the housing market and those questions. So thank you for being there for everybody who is calling regarding all those issues.
All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.